input from a number of different places, and we've consulted a number of different people, and so it's going to take us a little bit more time to work through this, but we'll get it right, and we have to get it right. It's really important. But again, this is important to us. It's also important to the many families who are part of our larger family here. So.
As we work in the Red Sea and Bombay and Dead, we're working not just with the U.S. but also with the international community, with our allies and partners, to ensure the freedom of navigation in the flow of commerce. There's still flow of commerce that goes through the Red Sea and the Bab el Mandeb, but as you highlight, the Houthis are challenging the ability for that to move through. We are taking away capability from the Houthis. We'll continue to take away in the approach we're taking capability away from the Houthis. But at the same point, it's going to take more than just a military operation, and this is an engagement with the international community, but also the interagency, to use the various tools to put pressure on the Houthis to cease this. They originally tied this in support of the Palestinians, and you watch how they've changed that. We'll see how this progresses forward. If the ceasefire does come to fruition in the hostage deal, that'll be a test of whether or not the Houthis are focused on the Palestinians or the Houthis are focused on the Houthis.
Mr. Secretary, as you know, the Pentagon recently withdrew its recommendation on that Gold Star issue to review it more. Do you anticipate we will see a firm recommendation out of the Pentagon by the end of the year, by the end of the presidential term, any of the above?
I won't provide any predictions on a date. Again, what's most important is that we get this right, and we take on all of the recommendations, and we consider every aspect of this issue. And when we're ready to provide that recommendation, we'll certainly do that. So.
Okay. Again, we do have limited time, so I appreciate your limiting your follow-ups. Let's go to Al Arabiya. Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Just to follow up on Prime Minister Netanyahu's comments yesterday, he said that he wanted to fast-track, he wanted U.S. weapons fast-tracked. He said that this would lead to a quicker end to the war in Gaza. Your former top official, who departed just in January on Middle East policy, said that the faster delivery of U.S. weapons to Israel will not enable a faster end to the war. There's no end to the war if the ends are total victory or only defined in military terms. Can you say whether you agree with that assessment or not? And General, I wanted to ask about the Houthis again. There's been some criticism in recent days and weeks from U.S. military officials, including from the CENTCOM commander, of the U.S.-led mission to counter the Houthis, that maybe the current mission is not succeeding. Can you talk about any recommendations that you've made that the administration has not heeded or listened to, or what more could be done other than, you mentioned more than just military operations or related matters. What else could be done specifically? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Regarding the speed of delivery of security assistance to Israel, we have provided security assistance to Israel at record pace, and we've done that from the very beginning. And we're able to do that because we learned a lot of lessons from our efforts to provide security assistance to Ukraine. And you saw what happened initially. This conflict, the Israelis were attacked. A couple of days later, we had security assistance flowing in on the airfield there to our allies there in Israel. We have sustained that throughout, and again, we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to ensure that Israel has what it needs to defend itself. But again, in terms of the Prime Minister's comments, I won't comment on that. What I will tell you is I'm going to stay focused on doing what we've done to date, providing Israel what it needs to be successful. So.
Well, I'll just tell you, I'm not going to get into internal deliberation discussions and tell you what recommendations I made or didn't make or what was taken or not taken. But I will say is that what we are doing is actually taking away capability from the Houthis from a military aspect. But to be able to address this, it's going to take broader than just the military strikes. There's an inspection regime of things that is of smuggling that we can we'll work through. There's also other things that, from a sanction standpoint, and many of the tools that you're probably familiar with. And that's the conversation of the things that we need to do, not just with the U.S., but just in the international community, and to raise the awareness of the impact of, there is the full navigation now, but there is an impact. And so how do we collectively, internationally, look at this so we can get that free flow of commerce back through the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb?
Okay, let's go to NBC.
Thanks. Mr. Secretary, when and how did you find out that President Biden was deciding not to run? I guess could you discuss when, how, and by who or whom? I'm not sure actually what that is. By whom did you find out that he was stepping down? Have you spoken with him since, or the Vice President since? And can you give us any sense of, like, I know you're not going to want to give us transcripts or quotes from any meetings that you've had that the Vice President has participated in, but in some of these bigger decisions that have happened as you've been Secretary, like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, strikes against the Houthis, can you give us any sense of the role that the Vice President has played in those meetings, like your impressions? And General Brown, you mentioned at the top that there are still active challenges today, including violent extremists. So I wonder, with this talk about the potential for the mission in Iraq to change, and the U.S. military presence there to really decrease by a significant amount in the coming year or so, what is the U.S. military assessment for ISIS in Iraq and Syria, and how they could reconstitute over what timeline? Please.
Thanks, Courtney. I found out when the president made the announcement. This is a significant issue, very personal issue for the president, and he made decisions on his own timeline. And seeing him, we were in the same NSC meeting yesterday, and then I spoke with him again separately by phone. Again, I think the president has done a significant amount for this country and the international community, and I am absolutely convinced that he is committed to doing everything he can for as long as he can to build upon many of the successes that you heard me talk about earlier today. I think in terms of your second question was about Vice President Harris and her contribution to decision-making processes. I won't get involved in any kind of political commentary or political processes. What I will tell you is what I know. Having sat in meetings with her for 3.5 years, having observed her provide input to some very complex decision-making processes, she is always prepared. She always provides meaningful and very helpful input. And again, I've seen her help the team, help the president work through some very, very complex issues. The president's the major player in the process, but she is a key player. So, and again, has always been engaged and involved, is always prepared for whatever discussion that we're going to have. She's represented this country in the international arena, on the international stage, a number of times, and done so in a very, very professional and effective manner. She's met with key leaders around the globe. She even met with President Xi, and so she understands, national security, international affairs, and again, she's been a vital asset to the overall team throughout this. Again, that's what I know from sitting in a room with her over 3.5 years. So.
I didn't mean to limit you. If you did want to give quotes or transcripts from meetings, you could do that. I was just trying to.
Sure. See me later.
It's on the record.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Courtney, on the questions regarding ISIS. You're probably aware that we had our Iraqi partners here this week to talk about the transition from Operation Inherent Resolve to a bilateral security relationship. I had a chance to sit down with my counterpart and talk a bit about that transition, but also talk about the security environment and in relation to ISIS. I can't predict for you, what might happen. But we are both focused on making sure there's not a resurgence of ISIS. And so as we make that transition, it is a topic that we did talk about, and how we posture ourselves from the U.S. military, how we work the bilateral relationship, and where the Iraqi security forces are, very broadly. Now we'll continue to work through the details of how that transition and number of forces, but we both understand the importance of us working together to ensure that there's not a resurgence of ISIS.
Okay, let's go to Reuters. Idris.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, let's start off with you. Can you just give us a sort of broader assessment of Israel's military strategy in Gaza? It seems there's sort of a clear and then not hold, which allows Hamas to come back in areas. How do you see, is that a sustainable strategy? And have you seen a credible day after plan from the Israelis so far? And Mr. Secretary, you mentioned Vice President Harris being a key player. Could you give an example of when you've seen that? And then personally for you, what are you hoping to achieve in the remaining 6 months? And looking back at your tenure, what do you see as your legacy? And what's your biggest regret that you've had in the past three and a half years?
In terms of specific examples of Vice President Harris's input to decision-making processes, we'd go back to the same place that Courtney was trying to get me to there, to provide information that we dealt with in that process, and I'm not going to do that. But what I will tell you is that if you just kind of look at the things that we have done, Idris, over the past 3.5 years, the strikes that we've had to take, the deployments that we've done, the decision to support Ukraine, there's just thing after thing after thing. She's always there. She's always a part of the process, and she's always very engaged. And then one thing that I would also tell you is that she absolutely loves troops, and she comes from the state of California, where, as you know, there are a lot of troops in that. So she's always been focused on the welfare of our troops and our families, and also veterans as well. So that's what I know, and again, she has been thoroughly engaged throughout. And what was the second part of your question?
What do you see as your legacy in this job, and what's your biggest regret in the past 3.5 years? You've had to, but naturally also some failures, frankly. But what's your biggest regret?
Idris, if my staff heard me talk about my legacy, they would have a heart attack, because they know that I never focus on my legacy. I'm focused on defending this country, taking care of our people, and making sure that we have what we need to do those things. And again, I think as long as we're doing the kinds of things that we are doing and have done, the legacy issue will take care of itself. Again, if you look around, there's a lot of points on the board, and if it's a fact, it's not bragging. It's just a fact. You look at what I mentioned earlier, what we've done with the Philippines and throughout the Indo-Pacific. You look at the fact that NATO is more unified than it's ever been. And it goes on and on and on. I think this team has done remarkable work. And I mention the team because it is all about the team. We have some of the greatest and most talented professionals here on the OSD staff that I've ever had the chance to work with. And of course, the caliber of people we have on the Joint Staff. But our troops are out there doing amazing things every day. And whatever successes we've achieved is because of them and because of the groups that support them. So we have work left to do, and we're going to stay focused on that work. We got Ukraine and Russia, we got Israel and Gaza, and we have to continue to make sure that we maintain a competitive edge in the Indo-Pacific. So, I'm sorry?
Biggest regret in the past 3.5 years?
I'll tell you what my biggest, what I'm grateful for most is having the ability to serve with the kinds of people that I just described. So,
to answer your question, Israelis are operating in a very complex urban environment with an extensive tunnel network. And so, from a standpoint, I pretty defer to them exactly, their strategy. But, being able to go in and clear out areas and then and being able to try to hold that at the same time as Hamas is able to use that subterranean features to move around does create some challenges. As far as the day after, we have talked to the Israelis about this, how to make a transition. We've talked to them a number of different times. There's not a lot of detail that I've been able to see from a plan from them, and that this is something we'll continue to work with them on. And cause it's going to be important for the security of the region of how you work that day after, as well as we work and talk to some of the other nations, partners in the region as well.
Okay, we have time for one more. We'll go to Charlie, CBS.
Thank you. First of all, Mr. Secretary, as we understand it, this is the first intercept of a joint Chinese-Russian exercise in that region. What message are they trying to send and why now? And in general, if I could ask you about the pier. A lot of these conditions would have been predicted and forecasted for, the challenges. Many people say that it wasn't designed for what it was meant to do. So what went wrong?
In terms of the message that the Russians and the Chinese are sending, I'll tell you what message we're sending. And that message is we're going to be at the ready. We are at the ready. We will always be at the ready. We're going to defend this nation. And so if there is a challenge or a threat to the United States of America, your troops will be at the ready and they will do the right thing. And I want to thank all those who continue to support our troops and their families. What you saw the other day is what they do each and every day. And I am absolutely proud of them.
What do you think of the timing? Why now?
Well, I mean, you could probably guess that things like that have probably been planned well in advance. And so that certainly would be my guess. And in terms of why they would choose to do something at a particular time, I have to ask them. But what I'll tell you is that whenever somebody does something like that, we'll be at the ready to do the right thing.
Charlie, as we did the planning for moving the JLOTs to the pier, and one of the things, there's a couple we knew that we did plan for. We knew this would be temporary. We also knew that the sea states would start to increase as you got further into the summer, and so from that perspective, we did everything we could to help mitigate. And as you saw, we bring the pier in, we move it back out, so we can preserve the capability to continue to push humanitarian assistance in to the citizens of Gaza. Again, I'm very proud of the 1,000 service members that were doing this work, because it's not easy work, and to be able to provide humanitarian assistance, I thought was I think we all collectively believe it was important to support and get that energized, not just what we did, but what the others were able to do. Us being able to energize the process.
But it was hoped it would be more effective.
Well, I mean, we didn't come out with a metrics and say here's how much we're going to move or how many days, but I think it was effective, and what we did is better than not doing anything at all and just observing. And again, I think we did a good job of actually getting things energized. And ideally, as we get ready to bring the JLOTs home, we'll continue to be able to help with the coordination piece now that we've got some of that coordination done, and continue that flow of humanitarian assistance into Gaza.
I mean, we're talking 8,800 metric tons of humanitarian assistance. If you're a person in Gaza starving to death, I think that's effective. And again, as the chairman said, this was never designed to be a permanent fix, and I made that point from the very beginning, and I made it every day, that this is a temporary measure that we're taking to help with the overall effort, and we're going to take it out at the end of July. So, but while when we had the opportunity to provide humanitarian assistance, I think our troops did amazing work. So.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes our press briefing. Secretary Austin, General Brown, thank you.